Hello, traders. Hello, warriors, which you have to be in this business, especially as of late. Pros know how to lose, so they have money left to be right with. And it's Liberation Day, David. You feel liberated today at all in any
Not
way?
yet. At 4 o'clock, I'll feel liberated, I think. So,
Okay, I know that my wallet is open and I'm going to be liberated from some more cash of after-tax income. I don't care what you call it. To me, it's a tax. So whatever it's going to be used for to pay for the tax cuts, to reindustrialize America right now when the consumer is already pretty stretched out. I think this plays into your latter scenario about liquidity and consumers being weak already.
yeah, I agree with that. I think Scott Besson pretty much warned us that you're going to have you're going to have pain before you have the gain. So, you know, um, I understand what Trump's trying to do. I think there's a lot of naysayers out there, and everybody wants to refer to the 1930s. But
Yeah.
I think we have to let it play out because number one, he's a negotiator, so a lot of this is negotiation. And number two, we have had open markets. Well, a lot of our trading partners have closed their markets to us, and so at some point you got to say enough already. We've got to take some of that back, and that's what he's doing. So,
Okay.
what the end result will be, I'm not sure. I don't think anybody can know.
Well,
But
let me take a guess. We're disrupting 40, 50 years of history with our trade routes and our trading system, and it's all going to change, and there's going to be more choke points, and there are going to be more shortages because of this. And there's also, we're only looking at it from our side. I agree with the long-term goals, David, but we're very vulnerable between A and B. And China holds a lot of cards right now to retaliate and cripple us in many ways. If we have a transformer go out now, will they ship it to us in a trade war? They make them. We don't. How about our pharmaceutical industry? How about our strag metals industry? So anyway, I think it's going to be a bumpy road. I don't think that you have a major transition like this without there being some jolts and some bumps in the road. But that's great for talking over a beer and a cocktail. I know that people that are here are tuning into you, Dave, because they're interested in capitalizing on these historic markets. So why don't we get to some of the markets and talk about what's happened since you and I were here? I mean, there's been a sea change. It was before the elections. No one knew who was going to. No, I think we did. We talked right after the election, Dave, and the market was pretty euphoric, and we were pressing the 6,100 level, which was a target of yours about 4 years ago.
yeah.
Remember that, right?
Oh yeah, no,
Okay.
actually was probably a target of mine 2.5 years ago in at
Yeah.
3,500.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, we had this little false breakout. And I do recall talk to you last time. You thought that we were past the point of having 10% pullbacks.
Yep.
So did this surprise you?
Well, obviously, it certainly didn't. It certainly
Okay.
proved me wrong on that. What I
Okay.
would say, I made that call or made that judgment based on the fact that we were seeing, the normal 3 to 5% pullbacks,
Right. All the way up.
and I thought we were probably in the stage where this thing was going to accelerate. What I now see is that what we had, if we go back and look at the bull market we've had since 2022, we had the run from October 2022 to October 2023, and then we had a 10% pullback or 10% correction. This one looks very much like that one. So you had a bull leg from October 22 to October 23, and corrected that, came down to
October
a trend
20th.
line there, moved up from 4,100 up to 6,100 over the next
Right.
year and a few months, and basically now we've had another 10% correction. So we've had two bull legs. I think the third one's just beginning. I do
Okay.
think we had a successful retest on Monday. I know a lot of people got upset by the fact that it undercut the March 13th low. As you well know, that's a normal way a market retests successfully.
It's a stop hunt.
It gets exactly. It gets everybody. The stops get blown out, and it gets everybody looking down, and then it reverses. So for the S&P, it basically undercut by 10 points. I mean, it
Yeah,
was nothing.
this is what Dave's talking about compared to this low. On the intraday stuff, there was no divergence, but people did point out the daily divergence. There definitely was between the two lows.
But we
Pretty
also had,
glaring.
yeah, and we had a bigger correction in the Nasdaq. Dow's down
Yes.
10%, the Nasdaq 15-16%, and the Nasdaq did undercut by a couple percent. But
Yeah.
again, I remind people that is pretty much within technical jargon a successful retest. Going undercutting by a couple percent is pretty normal. And so I view both as successful retests. And I think we are just beginning what I think is going to be what I've been talking about for a long time,
Long
a,
time.
a parabolic run to a top.
Catalyst is going to be, let me ask you this, David. During this decline, people have recency bias. So really the mantra and the regime was weak dollar risk on, weak dollar risk on. And during this decline, especially in the NASDAQ, you could overlay a dollar chart and the weak dollar um, mimicked the weak NASDAQ. Were you surprised that we didn't get a lift? And is this a new regime? Because I know you're right on the dollar. We've topped in the dollar up at that 110 level. I know you're looking for about 80, I think, 85, right?
82, actually, 82.
Okay, so was this just aberrational where people, really the narrative is there was repatriation. We told the Chinese we don't want your money anymore. They were parked in Q stocks. They liquidated. Emerging markets and even Germany was way outperforming us over the last couple months. And there are some people that are saying that are dollar bears that this is a secular shift from the U.S. being the outperformer to a mean reversion trade between the two and the rest of the world, like China outperformed during the last quarter compared to the U.S. I know you focus on U.S. stocks, but do you think that's a possibility that a weak dollar is no longer risk on?
No, I
Okay.
think I think what you've had, and you basically topped out the S&P in mid-December, uh, you know, basically double
Yeah.
topped in March. What you've had is people looking for other places because certainly tech led the decline, or tech led the consolidation. This consolidation didn't start in March; it started back last year.
Yeah.
The last month or two of last year.
Well,
So
we had that bear raid in December that
right,
really kicked it off. It was this day. This is
okay,
when the
yep,
tone changed, I
yep.
think, in the market.
So
Or
so
maybe this
obviously
was it. This,
So obviously, you've had people looking and saying, "Hey, maybe it's time to, tech isn't doing what it was doing. It's time to lighten up there, and I got to find somewhere else to go. And I'm not happy with small caps here." So I think, an international looks cheap relative to the U.S. So I think it was a good place to run while the U.S. was basically in consolidation. They may not have looked at it as a short-term consolidation. They may have looked at it as the beginning of a rollover, but that's all I think it is just
okay.
basically rotation out of the U.S. for a little while. I think you're going to see the U.S. outpace all the world markets. What I've said throughout this time of calling for a melt up and a run into a top is that the world markets would participate. They would also go up generally, most of them, but they would not keep pace with the U.S. The U.S. is in a unique position of a 42, soon to be 43-year secular bull market that I think is going to end in a parabolic, and I don't think any of the other markets can compete with that. You might see India. I don't follow it closely, so I'm not saying it will, but it is the one market that has had those kind of characteristics. You might see them try to keep pace, but I think the U.S. is still the lead. It's just we've gone through this consolidation. It's the pause that refreshes. It may feel for all those that are traders and kind of watch this thing day to day, it may feel like a long pause. It's not a particularly long pause given what we've seen from October 2022. The pause back in October 23 or leading into October 23 was a few months. This one's not even that. I mean,
Okay.
it
But
started.
tactically though, David, I know personally, I did pretty well in Nvidia puts and
Oh,
Apple
sure.
puts. I mean,
Yeah.
these were 20% moves
Yeah. I'm
in
not
some
at
of these
all.
tech.
I'm not
So
at all making light of the fact that there's been Tesla certainly hit
yeah,
people pretty
Tesla.
hard.
Yeah.
Nike's hit people very hard. Um,
Look at
Nvidia, relatively hard.
yeah,
Semis in general, relatively hard. So I'm not making light of the decline.
right.
I'm focused on what comes after the decline, and I'm telling you my belief is that we SMH the semi ETF
Semiconductors.
came right down to a trend line, I believe, and basically, I think the 100-week moving average, maybe 200-week. It looks to me like my target on SMH has been 400, and that hasn't changed. So we almost have a double from here, and I'm saying we could top out this summer. So a double from here in the next 3 to 6 months or 3 to 5 months
Wow.
is a spectacular move. Everybody wants to look at this as the beginning of a major top. I just think it's a long, a fairly lengthy consolidation of, rightfully so, of that huge move we had before that. So,
Yeah, because semis peaked in 24 in July.
yep,
So they weren't participating in the last wave.
right. And
And go
if you
ahead.
look across the board, you've seen that in the Mag Seven and a lot of things. Tech had its run, and then it started consolidating well before the market, and I think this is the completion of that.
While I was running through the board, I noticed this coincidence here, Dave. I know you like Russell's, and I think you were talking about a double in the Russell during this blow off phase too. So, do you have a 400 target in the
Yeah,
Russell?
not a double. I've had a 30. Originally, I had a 3,000 target. I raised that to 3,300 sometime last
Okay.
year,
All
and
right.
that's basically a 65% run from where we bottomed here.
Okay.
So it'll outpace the other indexes. Probably not keep pace with the semis.
Okay. So semis, you believe, are going to be the leader of the band during this melt up.
Yeah, and then obviously miners. I'm still very positive
Yeah.
on miners, even though they've been slow to come around.
Yeah. There's GDX, Newmont. I'm actually taking a tactical short. I wanted to ask you about this because this is one of the bull cases. There are plenty of things I could say that are bearish, but the way XLF held up here, we did have a pretty big break, but it looks like there's another high coming here for a 3 to me. And your big index, which tells you that there's an all clear. And I learned from you, Dave. Okay, so I started following this broker dealer index.
Yep.
I only get end of day and weekly, but this looks like this has another run in it too.
Yeah, I
And
think so. Somebody could try to make the case that there's a head and shoulder top
right,
building there.
right.
But everything else I look at says all clear and moving ahead. So I think this is going to prove to be a consolidation on the way to much higher. And when I look at the individual stocks, Goldman and some of the others, I think we're going a lot higher.
Okay. Pinkert says one more high. I don't know what it's going to be, but you see this. So I learned from you, you could learn from me. This is a 3 drive pattern, Dave. Here's drive 1,
Yep.
and you had confirmation with momentum here, huge momentum at 83. Consolidated, another new high. We diverged, okay, but way above my ideal divergence. My prediction is we'll make one more new high. The RSI will not get above 70, and that'll be at least a take profit signal.
Yeah, I would just argue that if I'm right about the market, these things are going a lot higher. It's everything's one more high because I think it's going to be a parabolic. I just would argue that it's not a near term high. It's out probably out into this summer sometime, and it's probably I don't know whether it's 50% above here or more, but it's probably at least 50% above here. So
Well, okay. And I know as a contrarian, this was an unusual top because, Dave, there was that high, there was no euphoria.
right.
The public was actually bearish. Now, if you kind of hung your hat on that bearishness, they were right for 3 months.
Yeah,
Okay, and
I'm yep. I'm more
go
focused on the fact that you're right. We came into March already with sentiment pretty negative. You know,
extreme fear on the greedometer,
and
and
yeah,
fear.
yep.
Yeah,
And just imagine how much that's gotten more bearish in the last 3 weeks or the last 2 weeks.
yeah,
Um, it's the kind of setup I want to see for what I'm calling for. I mean, if we're at the extreme bearish sentiment levels we're at, that's a lot of firepower to run this thing up to what I'm talking about. And I actually think I'm going to end up conservative on my indexes.
7,500 is conservative now.
I think so.
Okay, and is the catalyst really going to be here? Because we did also finally break down on the 10-year. You have like this one. I think you'll agree. I know most of them don't work, but this certainly looks like a head and shoulders top in the 10-year yield.
Yeah,
Uh,
I called that back 2 weeks ago. I think I said there's both a gap at 440 and a right shoulder top at
yeah,
450. So I
yeah,
said it doesn't have to go right to there, but you're basically looking at a right shoulder top here. And I've been calling for obviously 2.5%, probably in the next 3 to 6 months. And in the
big
bust, I
drop.
think the 10-year can go to zero. So this is a top in rates. I mean, all those people worrying about what the Fed's going to do, and that rates are good, that inflation's going up and rates are going up. This thing tells you that's all false.
Okay. So you've been spot on with your bullishness in gold, which a lot of super bullish equity guys usually aren't on that bandwagon, but they all are now because of this. I think you were looking for what, 3250 to
I've got a
3500?
3,400. I raised it from 3,000. I don't know when, many months ago, but 3,400 has been my call, I think, for the last year. And I'm probably going to raise that in my letter that's coming up next week. So I just think 3,400 is an easy move from here.
Okay.
And I've got a 75 number for silver. So
That's
uh,
going to be a hell of a move.
if silver's going to 75, gold's going way beyond 34.
Yeah, because the gold silver ratio, do you think that we should be close to some type of turn here? If you owned, say, just coins, would you exchange gold for silver here?
Let's put it this way: I can't make recommendations, but I
Uh,
what I will say is that
for yourself, would you
I
do it?
I even myself I would say that the gold silver ratio should have head back towards 50 to 40, somewhere between 40 and
Okay.
50 in this rally. So that means silver's going to far outpace gold, obviously, if that's true, and that's normal in a when they're both moving. It's been actually slow to come around for silver, but when they're both moving, silver usually outpaces, and it's got to catch up here because it really, people don't realize silver has actually traded up slightly more from the October September, October lows of 2022. I
Oh
think
yeah,
gold, I think
18.
silver and gold have basically traded up about the same amount. I think silver's a little bit more percentage wise, but everybody, to hear all the commentary, everybody's acting like silver hasn't moved at all. Silver's had a nice move. It's just not what it will do. I think there's a lot more to come.
That's because of the spreads that they paid to buy physical and the spreads that are going to have to pay to get out of physical.
Yeah,
But
it's also been because the damn miners have been, they start to go and then they fail. They start to go and then they fail.
okay. All
So I
right.
think
So, all right. So here's SILJ. This is one of your favorites, long term. It's a
yep,
nice base here.
yep,
Yeah, we're not at 14 with silver making new highs, but looks like you should be
yeah.
buying pullbacks here.
My target is 35 this year.
Okay.
So you got a good run. SIL, which is the larger silver, my target 75. So the junior
Okay.
should outpace.
A few of them have. Check this one out. It's been a pretty nice rally in 4 weeks. We're making new highs, and look,
Yep.
it's all about, on American Idol, it's your song choice, and it has to fit your voice. And in
Yep.
our business, it's trade selection.
Yep.
So yeah, you could have bought some bummer silvers, but there have been some that have tripled.
And
Here's one.
and a lot of them that haven't moved yet have long bases and
Look at
have.
this base.
Yep. Yep.
First Majestic.
That one should be a big winner at some point.
How much do you think we should charge for a video like this where we're giving such great ideas for people to get rich on? Dave,
I'll
you
let you
have
set the
any
price.
idea? Huh?
Um, I don't know.
All right.
I think the way people feel about me after this recent decline, they
Oh,
may not want to pay. So
oh well, I mean, sure. You know what? Let me just say something. People, if you can admit you were surprised, you admit you were wrong. No one catches every wiggle in the market. And if you're talking to people who never talk about being wrong, run away.
yeah.
So
Well,
that's
the problem I have is I have a lot of traders on my feed that don't understand that,
yeah.
I'm not trying to call every swiggle, and when I do try to call it, that's not my expertise. My expertise is the longer macro picture. So,
Look, a lot of bulls got caught, weren't looking for that 10% correction. So
but
let me
actually,
go
just real
go
quick,
ahead.
2 weeks ago, we bottomed on a Thursday at
Yeah.
5,500. The week after that, I said we'll probably go back and retest that. And then we had that opening Monday of a week ago, where it gapped up, and I
Yeah.
said, well, maybe we won't go back
This
and retest.
right here.
And then it did retest. So
Yeah.
when you get those kind of gap ups, it's hard to know whether it's off to the races or whether it's gonna fill in. But I did originally expect the retest. It just took a little detour to get there.
Okay. Well, we're coming to this is going to be a big level again for traders, Dave. We clear 5,800. You just do the simple math, 55 to 58 will take you back to the old highs. You think the major catalyst is probably just going to be a cheaper dollar, lower rates. What else can a
Yeah,
guy ask for?
it's lower rates, cheaper dollar. I think we'll get past all the gloom and doom about policy. What people don't realize is Trump has not just for example, he's taking on Russia and Ukraine to try to get that thing done. He's trying to get Middle East resolved.
It took longer than a day.
But yeah, well, that he tends to overpromise, but so do I. So,
Okay.
but I think he's also, and obviously with Doge, he's taken on the huge bureaucracy. All those things are big things he's trying to turn. He knows he doesn't have a lot of time. It's a one-term situation, and he
No,
may not
he
have
wants
he may not have time past the midterm election. So he's trying to get a lot done in a hurry.
yeah.
And at the same time, if people would open their eyes and notice this, his opposition, he's got Zelensky agreeing to a mineral thing, and then next thing you know, it backs off. I got news for people. If you don't think that the left in this country isn't going to our enemies and saying, go against Trump, go against Trump, that's what Zelensky got advice from the opponents of Trump in this country to not do a deal. And across the board, I think Canada, the same thing. We've got people in this country working at cross purposes with our best interests. All they want to do is defeat Trump and stop him. This is again, he's taking on an entire bureaucracy and trying to bring America back to what it was, and they don't like it. Look what he's uncovering in Doge. This is a little beyond what we normally talk about, but look what Doge is uncovering. There is corruptness to beat the band, and of course, both sides have some, but they are basically there's trillions of dollars have been basically taken out of our pockets from the left to fund NGOs, to fund their campaigns, to fund everything. And they don't want that uncovered. So they're making all kinds of noise to try to keep that quiet. And and their mainstream media friends are not reporting it. But that's what's going on. Is it's a big agenda. So people should really keep their eyes open.
Okay. I really think that there's arguments to be made on both sides. But you know what? You have to root for whoever is in charge, that, they their success is ours, their failures ours. So I hope it all works out. But
Yep.
I
But
also,
probably to take that back to this, the biggest thing I would argue, which is why I started saying that, is there's so much gloom and doom built into expectations for what Trump's trying to do. And the reality is something quite different. And I think as we move through the next few months, that gloom and doom is going to shift to more optimism. So we do have lower rates. We do have a weakening economy. We do have inflation trending down. Those are all positives. And then I think we're also going to get a shift back to, hey, Trump's actually doing some good things here.
okay. Just as a sidebar, I know you've been bearish uh, oil for a while. Looks like some people are front running a military strike on Iran. You still bearish oil here?
I'm still bearish. Obviously, if that happens, it changes things. But I think if you stretch out your chart, you'll see this is kind of just a normal counter trade move.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
is this a negotiation too, with 3 aircraft carriers and 7 B-1 bombers stationed there?
Well, obviously, I don't think he wants to go to war. I think he's trying to get. They're close to being a nuclear power. They're close to having nuclear capabilities, and so he knows it's an urgency, and he's trying to say, "Hey, let's come to the table and get this thing done so that we can." And Iran again. There's another place where I have a feeling. I can't prove it, but the left in this country is telling Iran don't negotiate with him. So they're working at cross purposes of our interests, and so who knows what comes out of that. But again, this is not a guy that wants to go to war, so I don't think that's likely.
Yeah, his base, that's not what, yeah, he came to be a peacemaker.
Yep.
Okay, so keep that in mind. And Dave, appreciate you being with us today. Was great catching up with you. And looks like we came on, picked a good week to do it, because actually, here we are with the potential turn. And even, I don't care if you're bearish, I wouldn't be short down here.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
what if we have, I mean, is there any possibility of a rally to 59.20? If we did this, Dave, we had some type of failing rally, and we don't melt up, and something else comes into the works after an advance, and we take out 5,500. Would that change your tune?
um, temporarily it might, but what I would say that's the consensus view right now. I think
Okay.
there's so
You're
many people out there saying we're going to run up to that point.
4,900.
Yep, and
Uh, uh,
then that it's oversold. It needs to run, but it's going to stop there and roll back over to new lows. And there are obviously a lot of people calling for major new lows. That this is a major top. Um, as I answered that question always with people on X, anything's possible.
yes.
It's not even close to my expectation.
Okay. because I even saw a bullish count that and it's not bullish now, but we could pull back to this megaphone formation, and the wave count allows for the market to fall to this level, which it would be the measured move if we took this out. So I mean, that to me, that's a kind of a hard stop. And we go down here, and then we rally to 7,500.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Is if it does that, I'd have to, probably rejigger my forecast. But I don't believe, even in that scenario, that we're at a major top and that the bull market's over.
No,
So
I don't, but there
yeah,
could be another
but yeah,
10% if we take that
yeah,
out,
yeah.
right?
It's not
I
it's
mean,
not even close to my expectation, but
right?
yes, I would agree with that.
I look, I get, one thing in the markets, Dave, and I say to everyone, expect everything and anything.
Right. Yeah, I talk with a lot of conviction when I see things,
Yeah,
but I'm the first one to say I can get it wrong. I mean,
yeah.
nobody has a crystal ball that knows what's going to happen. My conviction can lead people to think I think I know it. I don't know it. It's a probability thing. But I have enough things giving me that conviction, and I speak with conviction when I see it.
Well, you're pretty good, Nostra Hunter.
We'll see.
Nostra Hunter. No, and Nostra Pinkert signing off. Hope you guys enjoyed this. It's great to get both sides of the market. That's why I play devil's advocate at times, but I could see Dave's case. And pay attention to Dave, follow him on Twitter. Not that he needs more followers. And if you are, please be civil with him because he's just giving his time and doing his best to communicate what over the years, I've been talking to Dave for years now. Dave's been bullish and right on a lot of things and bearish in oil for years as well. So, David Hunter, let's talk in the summer, see how things are going, and I hope that you and your subscribers clean up. Let's have a good decade this year.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
All right. All right, Dave.
Okay,
Thanks,
Neil,
buddy.
as always, a pleasure. Thank
Good
you.
talking to you, bro. All
Take
right,
care.
that's a wrap, everyone. It will be on YouTube. Dave will probably share it. It's out there. It's worth another watch. Don't just count your semiconductors, count your blessings.